Ohio. Karlovy Vary, the resort statute city in the Czech Republic located in the west of the historic area of Bohemia and the place of confluence of Ogres, Orlava. It is also warm. It is called in honor of Charles IV Liuksemburgsky. Population 49864 persons. As of 2014. Since 2021 it is included in the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List. Karlovy Vary uses glory of the resort, in the city a set of the hot springs of mineral water having curative properties. To a surface there are 12 curative sources similar in the chemical composition, but having a different content of carbon dioxide and temperature from 30 to 72 degrees Celsius. Here including, are developed the glass and food industry. It is the most visited Czech resort. History. Exact date of foundation of the city is unknown. The place on which there was a center of Karlovy very long time remained out of the interest of the population. Steep slopes and improper climatic conditions of mountain sources didn't provide appropriate conditions for cultivation of crops. The ancient strengthened settlement of an era of late Bronze Age was found in Drakovišek. Mainly German-speaking population lived in close proximity to this place in the 13th century and has to be knew about medical effects of thermal sources. In 1325 of Ober, located in the territory of the modern city, is mentioned. It is considered that the small resort community at modern Karlovy Vary was founded about 1349. The legend of the basis of Karlovy Vary, which is written down in 1571 by Dr. Fabian Zimmer, says about a case with a hunting dog in the 70s of the 14th century. During persecution of a game on forest hunting, the dog fell to the pool of a mineral source with hot water. Groans of a dog called Dix of an expedition who, pulling out an animal, tried hot water. Those reported about the fine to Charles IV, the Emperor of the Sacred Roman Empire, famous for the poor health. The Emperor went to the place of a source and together with the present doctors noted that this hot water has medicinal properties. Charles took medical baths there and subsequently cured the sore leg. He founded a clinic under the name, Heat Baths in Locket, on the place of an estimated source. Subsequently the place was called Karlovy Vary in honor of the emperor. Charles IV approved creation of the city on August 14, 1370. The constant settlement arose in the middle of the 14th century. Originally in the city there were few inhabitants and their fundamental obligation consisted in care of sources. Karlovy Vary developed slowly and even the military operations which were taking place nearby didn't concern this area. So, a site wars never disturbed the city because it wasn't perceived as strategically significant. The clinic gradually developed and the city began to grow rich slowly. Nevertheless, growth was complicated by several misfortunes. In 1582 the city flooded, and in 1609 comprehended the destructive fire which destroyed 99 of 102 houses. The subsequent growth was interrupted by the 30 Years' War, which reduced the population and the number of resort visitors. At the end of the 17th century, important European persons began to visit Karlovy Vary. The city began to grow and build new buildings, for example, the Saxon Hall, which became a basis for Grand Hotel Pop. In 1759 the city was destroyed again by a flame. However, because of the popularity, he quickly enough recovered. Napoleonic Wars added popularity too. The short distance from fields of battles brought eminent visitors into the resort town. Behind architectural transformation in modernist style at the end of the 19th century, there are Vienna architects Ferdinand Fellner and Hermann Gallmer, who designed 20 large buildings in the city. After the case which occurred in Mannheim in 1819 in Karlovy Vary, at the time carrying the name Karlsbad, the conference of the Bundestag took place and the Karlsbad decrees were issued. These decrees, initiated by the State Minister of Austria Clemens von Metternich, were directed to introduction of the anti-liberal censorship in the German Union. Thanks to publications of such doctors as David Becker and Joseph von Lochner about curative properties of local waters, in the 19th century the city turned into the known spa resort, and many representatives of the European aristocracy visited. From the famous Russian writers living and treated in the resort, the Prince Piotr Andreevich Vazemsky is allocated. Having for the first time arrived to Karlsbad in 1852, he spent several years here and devoted to the city several poems and a set of diary entries. Also here Nikolai Vasilievich Gogol was treated. After construction of railway lines from Prague to Heba in 1870, the number of visitors increased from 134 families for a season of 1756 to 71000 guests annually by 1911. But the beginning of World War I in 1914 strongly undermined tourism, on which the city depended. At the end of World War I in 1918, the most part of the German-speaking population of Bohemia was included in structure of the new state of Czechoslovakia according to Saint-Germainski Contract. 1919. It caused big protests of the German-speaking population of Karlovy Vary. On March 4, 1919, quite peacefully there took place demonstration, but later in the same month 6 protesters were killed with the Czech troops after demonstration became uncontrollable. The city became the center of important events with approach of Nazism. The local bookseller Karl Hermann Frank became the leader of the Karlovy Vary Sudetoněmecké party. Later he was the second most powerful person in party. On April 24, 1938, Konrad Genlin in the city submitted 8 Karlovy Vary requirements, meaning disintegration of Czechoslovakia. In October of the same year, Karlovy Vary became a part of the Third Reich. At the end of World War II, the city, especially local part of Rybarzy, suffered from bombing. The end of war was followed by the forced movement of the German population according to the Potsdam Agreement. According to Beneš's decrees, their property was seized without compensation. During Socialism era in the downtown, several important buildings, such as Hot Colonnade and Thermal Hotel, appeared. After the Velvet Revolution of 1989, there came time of enterprise activity. Inflow of local and foreign investments began. Tens of sanatoria and hotels as a result of reconstruction reached the level of the international standards. According to a research of the Russian activist Mikhail Maglov, who studied the city on the basis of the local cadastral map, follows that about a half of the local real estate is owned by citizens of the Russian Federation and other countries of the former Soviet Union. Karlovy Vary, it is considered the most visited resort of the Czech Republic. On July 24, 2021, a transnational object, the Great Resorts of Europe, in which was entered in the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List, included Karlovy. Population. According to a census of 1921, 19480 inhabitants, from whom 10726 were women, lived in 1134 houses. 862 inhabitants reported about belonging to Czechoslovak nationality, 17173 to German and 133 to Jewish. There lived 16201 Roman Catholics, 901 evangelists, 65 members of Czechoslovak Hussite Church and 2115 Jews. In 1938, the majority of the German-speaking areas of Czechoslovakia, known as the Sudets, was a part of Nazi Germany according to conditions of the Munich Agreement. According to a census of 1932, 3901 persons lived in 1498 houses. 1446 inhabitants reported about belonging to Czechoslovak nationality and 20856 to German. There lived 19718 Roman Catholics, 1099 evangelists, 141 members of Church of Czechoslovak Hussite and 2120 Jews. Before World War II, the German population made the vast majority of the city, which was moved after war on the basis of Beneš's decrees. The city had one of the most ancient and economically important Jewish communities in all Czechoslovakia prior to World War II. For example, the world-famous glass plant Moser was founded by the Jewish businessman Ludwig Moser, and before World War II is kept by his descendants. The local synagogue, which burned down during so-called Crystal Night, was one of the biggest buildings such in Europe. The vast majority of the Karlovy Jews died during the Holocaust. In January 2014, the number of inhabitants was reduced slightly less than by 4,000 inhabitants, falling as lower than a 50,000 mark. It means loss for the city not less than 3 officials and also smaller receipt of money from the budget. Karlovy kept the population more than 50,000 only thanks to foreigners. Its share of foreigners in population of the Karlovy region in 2012, about 7%, after Prague, is the highest share in Czech. Vietnamese were the most numerous group of foreigners. They are followed by Germans, Russians and Ukrainians. Resort factors. Since 2001 contains less minerals than other sources, but bigger quantity of Co. From a snake mouth it follows directly in the garden colonnade. The major natural medical factor, thermal carbonic sulfatic sodium, the hydrocarbonate sodium, containing compounds of calcium, potassium, magnesium, iron, lithium, bromine and other substances. A mineralization up to 7G/L. On the chemical composition of water of all sources are approximately identical and differ mainly with the carbon dioxide content. From 0.37 to 0.75 G/L. And temperature. Water of the mill source, Radonic. About 1 E L. Mineral waters of Karlovy are used mainly for drinking treatment. Spill water of the mill source in bottles, and water of a source Vera is a basis for all balneoterapeutic procedures applied in the resort. Carbonic, oxygen, radonic, pearl and other bathtubs, bathings in pools, washing of intestines, irrigation, rinsing and another. Besides, from mineral waters by evaporation received natural Karlovy salt, which contains 18% of chloride of sodium, 36% of a hydrocarbonate of sodium, 44% of sulfate of sodium, about 2% of sulfate of potassium, and also small amounts of salt of calcium, magnesium, iron, lithium, fluorine, bromine, and others. Medical factors. In the resort, treatment of patients with diseases of a stomach and intestines, liver and bilious ways, and also with metabolic disorders is performed. Diabetes, obesity, and others. The resort polyclinic, balneoleczebnica, drinking gallery, pump rooms of separate sources, numerous hotels, boarding houses, and sanatoria functions. Medical institutions widely apply physiotherapy exercises, different types of massage, electro and phototherapy, heat treatment, including mud baths and appliques. For the Dost walks there is a terrain over 100 km of paths which pass across the most beautiful places of Karlovy. Sites. High concentration of monuments is in the resort downtown, along the River of Heat. The most part of monuments have specific resort character, such as colonnades, buildings of spa or historical hotels. Over the resort center there are also viewing towers and numerous prospects complemented with various sites. Historical resort buildings were numbered after 1918. From 6 only 4, from which only 2 still serve the initial purpose, remained up to now. Imperial were constructed by Leysen. At the end of the 19th century as envisioned by architects Ferdinand Fellner and Hermann Gelmer. In the building of the Imperial Bath there were 120 bathrooms and cabins. Xander's Hall is conceived originally as gym, turned into casino in a style of 80 and 90 years of the 20th century. In 2010 the building became a national cultural monument. To the Lejena. 2 were located by Varadalny near a hot spring and offered carbonic bathtubs. In 1940 resorts were closed and demolished in 1947. Kerkhouse 3 was constructed between 1864-1866 and work now. Originally in the building there were steam baths with the pool and carbonic bathtubs and peat wrappings. To Nova Lasna 4 serves as shopping center now. But here too I was in the past city institution. The building was built at the end of the 19th century. Elizabeth 5 Spa Center bears a name of the Empress Elizabeth Bavarskaya. The building was built at the beginning of the 20th century. During reconstruction of a spa center it was also added with the pool. The last reconstruction took place in 2002. Solar bathtubs 6 are the not remained monument. The resort was the youngest in Karlovy, constructed in 1927. The building was demolished in 2006. On the place of the building Spa 6 house was constructed. Colonnade from 28 Karlovy sources 16. Including Doric and Stepping sources. And 13 are used for drinking therapy. In the city only 5 colonnades. Garden colonnades mini source, garden source. The pavilion at the Mill colonnade, Svoboda source. Mill colonnade, a rocky source, Libish's source, a source of the Prince Wenceslas I and II, the Mill source, the source the Mermaid. Market colonnade, a market source, the source Castle Nizhny Novgorod, Charles IV's source. Castle colonnade, a source-top castle. Varadalny Kolonadovera. Church monuments. Churches. Street. Maria Magdalena's Church is an Odnantny building in Baroque style on the area of year 1732-1736, constructed by Kilian Ignaz Dinzenshofer. To a facade there is a dvukroskowy ladder and two towers with bulbous cuttings. Painting in the altar picture painted by Eli Ashdolf, the main altar picture from J. Shea. Medico represents Christ in a revelation to Maria Magdalena. Street. Piet and Pavel's Orthodox Church in 1893-1897, the architect Gustav Widerman. It was constructed for assistance of patrons from among the Russian aristocracy. St. Urban's Church. The 13th century. Rybaz, restored after 1500 with use of original elements of church in a chapel, arose probably in the second middle of the 13th century within colonization. St. Peter and Pavel's Church of 1856, the architect J. Zysik till 1946 Evangelic Church of St. Peter is constructed in Neo-Roman style. In 1864 was the tower is constructed and construction of next began. The wooden carved department costs on 3 columns. In the church both the tempered wooden benches and metal baptistry are located. The body belongs to the organist Muller from Hebe. The Pilgrim Church of Street Anne in Sedlce is constructed between 1739 and 1748. She is located in the village with history begins with the 11th century. An altar in Baroque style, an ancient statue of Saint Anne with Maria and the Child. Greco-Catholic Cemeterial Church of Saint Andrew of the 16th century. The oldest Karlovy Vary church, originally Gothic, was several times reconstructed. The adjacent cemetery was closed in 1911. Anglican Church of St. Luca of 1877, architect Dr. Mutz. It is constructed in neo-Gothic style, with financial support of patrons from among the English vacationers. Ruins of Romance Church of St. Linkart. The oldest constructed monument of Karlovy Vary, the first mention of 1246. Here the archaeological researches financed by the Karlovy Vary Museum were conducted. Church of the Ascension of 1909 is constructed on the place of an old chapel of 1823. Church of Rise of the Sacred Cross in Rybaz near St. Urban's Church. Environment. The city is located near the Slavkovsky Wood. The Algers River divides the city into northern and southern parts. Into the Algers River fall Hadavsky Canal, Rolavo River, Vitsiki Canal. In Ispot territory about 80 sources of thermal water. The ban on extraction of water from sources is released in 1761. In hot springs of Karlovy Vary in the 19th century the first species of a thermal cyanobacterium of Mastagoclidus laminosus was described. Average temperature in the city reaches 7.3 C, the warmest month in a year, July, when average temperature reaches 16.9 C. The coldest month, with an average temperature of 2.1 C, January. The average annual sum of rainfall reaches 659. Economy. The area abounds with natural wealth. These are already mentioned mineral sources. Production of mineral water in bottles are fields of kaolin which are used for production of local porcelain. Local spa is founded on use of mineral water with medicinal effects which arises at a depth about 200 meters. Water has beneficial influence on treatment of diseases of a liver and intestines, a stomach and a liver. Water with connection on COSO 60%, which is in full swing at a temperature of 73 C in a hot spring with intensity about 200 L/m. Mineralogical structure about 5.9, 6.5 G/L, with the maintenance of Co on 0.375, 0.750 G/L. Dr. David Becker, 1792. Worked generally on modernization of the Karlovy Vary balneology. In the 19th century his work was connected by Dr. Jean de Caro, Dr. Rudolf Manel and Dr. Edward Hlavacek. Sources are an important source of income for the city now, and attempts to protect sources raise the price for their use. In the past already was so that in the region sources, dried, that was connected with an economical extraction of brown coal in Sokolovsky ditch. Then in Varek there was a flooding of the mine and at the same time temporary depletion of a source. After that it was necessary to close the mine. However, despite timely intervention, completely a source it wasn't succeeded to restore. The second problem tormenting the city is a natural water erosion which goes deep into the support plate. There are assumptions that if this plate broke, mineral waters would filter directly into the river. The city resists it, allowing the bed of the river to branch. The following protective step is regulation of construction around sources. The glass industry is connected with Moser in Karlovy Vary, which produces drinks and decorative glass products. The firm received the name from the founder Ludwig Moser, who in 1857 based an art workshop and trade gallery in the city. The company prospered from the very beginning. For example, it became the court supplier of the Emperor Franz Joseph I. As it is at the end of the 19th century, it could open the own glass production plant at court. After World War II, the glass plant functioned as the national enterprise under the name the Karlovy Vary Glass. The company was transformed to joint stock company in 1991. In 2008 in the glass plant the Museum of Glass was open. The glass plant Moser is also a producer of the Crystal Globe, the first prize of the International Film Festival in Karlovy Vary. The Karlovy Vary region and Karlovy Vary are famous for production of porcelain. In Karlovy Vary in direct proximity more than 10 porcelain plants work. The beginning of production of porcelain was difficult. At the time of Austria-Hungary it was necessary to get permissions for production of porcelain that was practically not possible because of fear of the monarchy of the excessive competition in relation to the imperial plant in Vienna. The porcelain plants operating in the past and the present in today's territory of Karlovy Vary are given below. Today the plant is focused first of all on hotel porcelain. In 1992 the porcelain plant was privatized as the Hotel Porcelain Karlovy Vary, bought by Keramik Holding AG Lafen concern. Moritz Dekar 1810. The porcelain plant received the name from one of its owners in the 19th century. Not the founder. Number 1810 belongs to year of foundation. During the economic crisis, the porcelain company had to stop activity in 2013. Candy plant, today not working anymore, which was founded in 1849. In 1922 I became a part of EPI concern. Carl Knowles porcelain, today anymore not working plant, he stopped the activity in 50 years of the 20th century. In the plant building there are several small companies now. The porcelain factory of Brothers Schwalbauf is founded originally as Heckman and Olorado in 1878. Important prerequisite for success of porcelain factories in Karlovy Vary is an arrangement in the territory with the field of kaolin. At the end of the 19th century, the Zetlitzer Kaolin Work Company, which works in the region under the name of Sedlecki Kaolin. The Sedlecki Kaolin, now to this day, was founded. Food industry. January Becker. The Karlovy Vary Bekarovka is the company producing the grass Bekarovka liqueur. In 1807 Joseph Becker began to sell the liqueur under the name English bitter, used for treatment of a stomach. However, his son, January Becker, who for production Bekarovki constructed factory, is considered the real founder of firm. From family Bekarov, the firm was separated after World War II during nationalization process. After 1989 the company was privatized, and its owner became the French company Pernod Ricard. The Karlovy Vary mineral waters. The largest producer of mineral waters in Central Europe, releasing the mineral water Matoni, Magnesia, Podbradka, Dobra Voda, Haneka. The history of the company goes back to the second half of the 19th century, when Shia was based by Heinrich Matoni. In 2018 it was declared acquisition of PepsiCo of the company the Karlovy Vary mineral waters. Karlovy Vary is the important place of cultural activity. The most known and the most significant cultural actions of the city is the International Film Festival, which is attended every year by large film celebrities from around the world, during which the best movie is awarded with the Crystal Globe. In the city, the oldest symphonic orchestra in the Czech Republic, which is one of the oldest symphonic orchestras in the world, also works. There is a Viteslava theatre and a set of the movie theatres used during the International Film Festival. Transport. In 4.5 km from the city there is an international airport, Karlovy Vary, from which regular flights to Moscow are made. In the city there are two railway stations. Gorny Nadrashi, top station, and Dolny Nadrashi, lower station, with Horny Nadrazi trains to Prague, in the central part of the country, and on Hebe, in the direction of border with Germany Ply. To the station daily there arrives one car of the train going to the Czech Republic from the Belarusian station in Moscow. From the lower station railway communication with the resort of Mariinsky Lázně and also with the German city of Zwickau is made. From the bus terminal of the lower station the yellow RegioJet bus, following to the Prague airport of Václav Havel and Florence's bus station. In the center of Prague hourly goes. From the same terminal long-distance buses to the neighboring cities, among which there are Loket, Sokolov, Hebe, Franikova Lázně, Ash and others ply. On the city the network of regular buses plies. The main stop for all routes is Torsnäs in a business part of the city. The cost of one ticket for the city bus since January 1, 2017 is 25 Czech korunas. Funiculars. In a resort part of the city there are two funiculars. Lanovka Imperial, lifting to the Imperial, and Lanovka Diana Hotel, which is on the height, to a viewing tower Diana, and to the restaurant of the same name. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.